everyone, welcome to my channel, Spirits in the Studio. I'm Nancy and I am a visionary and intuitive artist. I wanted to talk to you today about my spirit portrait of Rosa Parks. If you're not familiar with what I call my spirit portraits, they are a glimpse of a person as their higher self, surrounded by their power animals and sacred botanicals. All right, so without further ado, let's dive into this spirit portrait. And I'd like to start off by talking about the channeling experience I had with Rosa. Before I do these portraits, I invite the spirit of the subject to join me in a special environment that I envision in my mind. And this consists of a rope bridge spanning a valley in a jungle setting. So when I did that, Rosa appeared on the bridge facing me. She was holding both sides of the rope banister, and she was a little bit wobbly. She looked kind of afraid of heights or maybe of the movement, but she was smiling and she seemed happy to be there. And she thanked me for creating her portrait, and she told me how much she appreciated it. And then she said, "My work with the movement is done. It really took up so much of my life, more than I intended it to take up." And then she seemed kind of weary talking about it. And then I got the image of a large ocean wave, and I had the impression that was her way of showing me the movement was this big wave, and it was powerful, but it was also stressful for her, and I can imagine that it would have been. And then she said, I still see a lot of injustice, I see a lot of hypocrisy, and it seemed to weigh heavily on her heart. And then she said, "But I love the people who fought with me. I love their spirit, and that is what I am going to focus on, and I rejoice." And then she kind of closed her eyes again and smiled, and that was the end of our session together. And that gave me a lot of color and emotion to use in this portrait. And as far as the life she lived, as a quick backstory, if you're not familiar with the story of Rosa Parks, on December 1st in 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama, she boarded a city bus, and she intentionally sat in a section reserved for white people. She was tired from her days working as a seamstress, but mostly she was tired in her heart from racism. And when she was asked to get up and move, she refused, and consequently she was arrested. And she probably didn't realize how this courageous act would spark so many things. It sparked the 381-day Montgomery bus boycott. It earned her about 24 honorary doctrines. 1 year after her arrest, the U.S. Supreme Court, as a result of her action, agreed unanimously that there could be no more segregation on city buses. And she was also the first woman to lie in state at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda when she passed away at the age of 92. So she really helped change the world in a very positive way. And moving on to the portrait, First let me say that there's a lot of information that I put into every portrait in my newsletter that I post on Substack. I do it twice a month, and each posting showcases my latest portrait and the deep dive that goes with it. And I was going to mention that I did numerology for this portrait as well, because the number in this famous mugshot is so prominent. It has got to have a lot of meaning. So please see the Substack if you want to read about the numerology, which ends up making perfect sense and is in alignment with her life journey. My Substack is also free to subscribe, and it helps you, at bare minimum, have a better look at the artwork. All right, so moving on, I want to go over the power animals that helped this woman have such a keen mind, strength, and courage. And let's start with Black Leopard. Black Leopard helped Rosa Parks walk an unknown path in the darkness filled with terror. Back in her day and in her place, the Jim Crow laws were brutal, and people who challenged segregation faced extreme violence. She was also one of the forerunners walking this path, actually trying to change the laws and stand up to them. She even had to move at one point. She had to leave the state, quit her job, leave the state, and find a new job somewhere else, because I imagine the heat from the bus boycott was intense. And as I said, Jim Crow is synonymous with violence and terror. So I think Black Leopard helped her navigate that walk through the darkness where anything could have happened to her. Moving on, we have Dragonfly. Dragonfly came on board, I imagine, the day she got put in that patrol car. She might have felt very alone and afraid, but Dragonfly reminded her that she had a tremendous community of local people behind her, as well as a higher power that does not leave anyone out in the cold. Moving on to Crow. Crow helped her fight laws that were man-made and unjust, and rather than obey those laws, Crow reminded her that there is a higher order based on right and wrong, and that ultimately is the guide. Next, we have Coyote, who came in with light but sure-footed maneuverability to deal with local police that did not necessarily follow the law themselves, and they used trickery and illegal tactics to discourage her, as well as the general Jim Crow mindset. And then we have Emu. Regal Emu guided, along with Coyote and Black Leopard, guided Rosa to endure the winding and unknown path in front of her with tremendous grace, dignity, stoicism, and resilience. As for the botanicals, I invite you to see my Substack for those. All right, this concludes the video. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Until the next time, may you be in touch with your higher self, and may your power animals be with you.